there is still a big bounce back in the crypto market. Of course, we are keeping an eye on a lot of these old coins such as XRP, XLM, HAR, ALGO and others to have a much bigger and stronger comeback. But in the last week, the market for old coins has been very green. XRP is up about 9.5%, HBAR is up 5.4%, XLM is up 12.5%, and most of the old coin market is up a lot. It's a little different on the daily. Though it's still green, there's still a lot of red that we'd like to see go away. But once more, the important thing is that the big rebound is just beginning to happen everywhere. Bitcoin has been one of the main things I've been thinking about all the time. Bitcoin has gone back up to over 122,000. It's great that Ethereum is back up to over 4,500. Of course, even XRP goes back more than $3. That makes us happy. Following that, yes, XLM over 40 cents and above. HBAR more than 22.5 cents. This healing is off to a great start. It's clear that I want to see a bit more, but this is a great start. We're also seeing some pretty big moves that kind of confirm our next big move, which we'll talk about next. Taking a quick look at the live market summary. The market value of all cryptocurrencies right now is over $4.2 trillion. By the way, this is a new all-time high. In August, this was our highest point. We reached about 3.72 trillion back in 2024. That means we are a lot higher than all of those all-time highs. And the green across the board could be seen at the very top. Fear and greed are still around 57 though, and the old coin season measure is over 67. I have it open over here too. This chart was clear. This is a pretty good or even great view of old coins. As I've always said, this view doesn't really show when old coins will be valuable, but rather how strong they are against Bitcoin. The fear and greed index is back up to 57. We need to be very careful here because, this is starting to break to the upside, but we could become too bullish. Then there could be a pullback before the next big wave and everyone starts to panic again. But this is a great sign that the market is recovering and people are becoming more excited. When it comes to Bitcoin, just looking at this thing per month is absolutely beautiful. This is the main thing I've been talking about over the last few days and weeks. Focus on positive structure. This is especially true when we were selling off all the way back to the middle of August. The most important thing is the organization. If we look at this all-time chart of Bitcoin alone, we can see that there have been big drops in value during this whole cycle, which makes a lot of people worry. For instance, in 2024, we sold off everything from February or March all the way through the summer. Everyone thought, is this it? Has the bull run been called off? Are we going to the open market? Focus on structure, I told you. Afterward, that helped us reach the peak in, say, December 2024 or January 2025. Also, there was that big sell-off, like, oh, is this it? Are we selling off? Like, is this the beginning of the bear market? Again, bullish structure is on your side. After the big push to the upside, there was a small sell-off. Again, the small drop in price was really nothing when you look at it this way. But if we look at just 1 year, this was a nice little sell-off. It dropped right back into the high demand areas from May, but the main pattern was bullish. And if we look at Bitcoin right now on this daily view, I told you to pay attention to these lows during the last couple of big updates that I've been pushing. We have reached a big important low point. The chart went down to this point. This was the lowest point compared to the other lows we had reached. Then we made this low point, which once more would have been the clearest sign for us to turn gloomy. Okay, if this had been a break below the previous lows, I would have become negative on this chart. But we held on to it, which was a sign that prices were going up. Then we were on a high that we had to get off of. We needed a stronger high. After getting that on Wednesday, we were able to push up to these highs. The important point here is that we haven't made a higher high since the highs in August, and the RSI is once again getting to a point where it is a little too high. Well, the RSI showed that prices were too high back in August before this big drop. We also broke through the overbought area back in July, which led to another sell-off. That being said, the most important thing to think about right now is if Bitcoin does go down in value, which is very likely given where we are trading and how quickly we've come this far. What price would I want to keep Bitcoin at if there was a sell-off? I'd really like to keep the previous barrier around 120,000. That's a very strong sign. We should hold the highs from September, like the middle of September, if there is a much bigger sell-off. This area, which is about 117K, would be very good for us to hold. There is a good chance of that happening. So I would say that any level in this range is where we might see a sell-off. And this is where we would be looking for Bitcoin to make a much bigger move on its own on this picture. And just so you know, Bitcoin still looks really good right now. Also, once more, a sell-off is not a given. It's possible that Bitcoin won't go down at all and will instead continue to rise, especially when we look at longer-term trends. On a longer-term level, we haven't yet reached the overbought zone. We just went over the weekly moving average, which means that the price of Bitcoin could go through a lot bigger changes. Also, I just told a few people about this by taking a quick look at the weekly. They said, well, you don't think Bitcoin is about to reach its peak, do you? I don't think so. What if we look at past cycles? They should be on this chart, right? It was easy to see where Bitcoin hit its cap. take 2021 as an example, I would say that we should have left the market around April or May of that year. The RSI was way too high. The same thing happened here in 2017. Again, a great way to get out of old coins, which are too crowded for Bitcoin. The setting was the same, and the RSI was too high even in 2013. I really believe that RSI can go much higher right now. We might get as high as 87, but I want the RSI to reach its highest point at this level, which would mean that the market is way too bullish. After that, Bitcoin should reach a high point. Around that time, we should also see a peak in altcoins. Alt season hasn't started yet, and that worries a lot of people. Before we get to that excessive point, alt season will come on. We don't need to worry about that then. We don't need to worry or do anything like that. The higher lows are very clear on this chart, even when looking at it on a weekly scale, since we were already looking at it on a daily scale. Also, 2 days or 48 hours remain until the weekly close at the all-time high point on this chart. And if Bitcoin does close above this 120,000 mark, it will go straight to 130,000 or more. That should really hit the market hard. When we talk about the rest of the market, Ethereum is doing pretty well, right? We got to about 4,600. Ethereum still needs to do some work for us here. Yes, this chart did reach a lower low point. From those lows, we didn't really build a higher low system. So I would say that there might be a sell-off on Ethereum to make a higher low structure. It would be a bullish formation, and prices should keep going up until they reach a new all-time high. It's a little different with XRP, right? Based on the lows from August, we did make a higher low structure.